A new security report just dropped, and the number that jumped out at me was 92%. 92% of applications built with AI coding tools, things like Cursor, Copilot, ChatGPT, Claude Code, contain at least one critical vulnerability. Not a minor issue, not a best practice violation, a critical exploitable security flaw, and the average AI built app has 8.3 of them. Hi, my name is Ryan Anwar. I've been a cybersecurity professional for over a decade, broken into many systems companies thought were secure, and I'm telling you that this report confirms something the security industry has been watching happen in real time. Now, in this video, I'm going to break down exactly what's going wrong, why AI coding tools are producing more insecure code by design, and why this moment is creating more demand for cybersecurity than anything. So stick around for point 3. It's the part that directly affects your job prospects right now. So this information, by the way, came from a report from Sherlock. I'll link that down in the description below. If you haven't heard of the term vibe coding, essentially it's what allows you to prompt an AI to build out code and AI written tools, things like that. And it's allowing tiny teams to ship full SaaS products. Now, the thing about this, and this is what I'm starting to hear from developers, people that are senior software developers, or they're saying, hey, even though you can vibe code stuff, it's really only useful as of right now for prototyping. And if you try to build like a full-on production application, you're going to end up with a lot of really bad code, because a lot of the stuff that AI writes, according to software engineers, while it does work, and that's where all the focus has been put, before it didn't compile correctly, you would ask the AI, would give you code that doesn't even run. Now the code will compile correctly, it will run most of the time, but it's not very cleanly written code. There's a lot of spaghetti code, as we say, like things that are written very inefficiently, things that don't make sense. And that's fine for a small application, but if you want to build like a SaaS, or like the bigger your application gets, the more and more bad code keeps compounding on top of each other. And then you end up not just with software that has like, inefficiencies, but also a lot of security flaws as well. A lot of them are seeing is that you'll probably still need the senior software developers after all, probably won't replace everything. The default assumption is if it compiles, then it's fine, right? And security is an afterthought. So this Sherlock forensics report ran from January to April 2026 on real applications, found that 92% of them had at least one critical security vulnerability. When I say vulnerability, I just mean like a security issue. And 8.3 exploitable findings on average per application. Also 78% plain text secrets found in environment files. So basically you have configuration files. 78% of the time, there were just like plain text passwords and secrets written there. And 80% of the time, there was no rate limiting on the authentication, meaning you could just hammer and like brute force try to authenticate to something, log into something, and there was no limit to how many requests you could send per minute. And also 91% of them had no security logging. So even if you were hammering away trying to log in, brute force something, they wouldn't even be logging your attempts. So they wouldn't even know that it's happening. And then 18 days on average is what it took for the first exploit attempt. The timeline very much compressed. If you're hearing all these things and you're feeling very bullish on cybersecurity for the future, you want to optimize your path in, then check the link down in the description below. Fill out a brief survey. We'll jump on a call and see how we can optimize your way in. On the one hand, you're hearing things like, cybersecurity is overcrowded, it's oversaturated, certs aren't working anymore. On the other hand, there's thousands of vulnerable apps that are shipping monthly with zero security review, especially if you think about who is the use case for like this vibe coding stuff. A lot of times it's like SMBs, small to medium-sized businesses, probably don't even have a in-house security team and probably don't even pay for any kind of external security team to audit their stuff. These are, people just trying to grow their company. They don't even know anything about security, let alone are they thinking about it. Other very interesting thing that this report noted is that the security issues, the vulnerabilities they found were not anything exotic. It was mostly just the OWASP top 10 basics, so basically the most common security issues we see out there. They were pretty much those, and just reintroducing them at scale. So one of the big issues were hallucinated dependencies. So 34% of Node.js products import packages that don't even exist, and attackers can just register those names and then successfully conduct supply chain attacks. This reminds me a lot of, if you guys have been learning any cybersecurity stuff for a while, you might have done what is known as DLL hijacking. So you might have used like sysinternal suites, one of those tools, process hacker or process monitor. Basically, you launch up a process and you look to see what DLLs it tries to load and in what order. And if it tries to load a DLL from a location that doesn't exist, you could just create DLL of the same name in that location that's going to hijack the search order. So it's going to then run your malicious DLL, run your malicious code, and then you have basically got code execution, malicious code execution. Maybe you can use that for privilege escalation or something like that. If I'm speaking a lot of jargon, just know that this is a type of attack pattern that we have seen in cybersecurity. But essentially, they've been able to do that with these Node.js projects 34% of the time. And also the tool breakdown they looked at Copilot, ChatGPT, Cursor, and Claude. They had 9.1 average findings, and 94% of them were criticals. On ChatGPT, they had 8.7 average findings, 91% of them were critical. Cursor had 7.9 average findings and 89% critical, and Claude with 6.4 and 82%, which is the best, but still critical in 82% of cases, which that's like, that's not really a high bar, right? It's not really saying much. 18 days to the first exploit, so there's no grace period. Scanners are systematic. That's a lot faster than what we've seen pre-AI technology. And also, I've personally seen these exact categories produce real breaches and engagements as well. So I think this is some pretty relevant information coming out from this report here. So what does all this mean for you guys? Well, essentially, the faster these companies are trying to ship with no security, that means more attack surface. They're basically acquiring something we call security debt. Each time that they have all these vulnerabilities, potentially when they're using these vibe coding tools, you compound, because with each commit, each time you push that code, you're stacking up the likelihood is basically over 100% that you're going to have vulnerabilities, and a lot of criticals, it sounds like, at that. And so people who can find and fix these vulnerabilities are going to be in high demand for sure. And especially if you understand some of the AI tooling, AI technology surrounding that as well. And it's going to become increasingly more important to audit before launch. So scanners miss some of the AI-specific patterns. So you want to validate every dependency as well for those hallucinated packages. And sometimes the AI straight up hallucinates. I guess that's how it's a little different than DLL hijacking, because sometimes they make up package names that just don't even exist. Because I guess it's AI is only as good as its training data. And if you're learning from the internet, there's good on the internet and there's bad on the internet as well, right? You want the secret scan on every single commit, including the history. You want to rate limit stuff. 88% don't have rate limiting. That metric definitely surprised me. And you definitely want structured security logging as well. Why this matters for people trying to break in is if your target companies or startups in SMB, like I said, they usually don't have any security in place at all. That's the new thing. It used to be that companies would mostly go after like the big guys. Now they're going after the small guys because they're using these tools, and it's really easy to compromise them. So the skills that are needed are foundational. So things like SQL injection, broken auth, secrets management, rate limiting, all these things are core cybersecurity areas that they continue to be core even today. So if you focus on your OWASP top 10, that's going to get you a surprisingly long way of the way there. So also learn how these AI tools can fail. This is going to be really helpful on interviews and stuff too. I think we're going to see a lot more AI-based interview questions spring up. And when you're building out your portfolio, include real vulnerability findings and reports, and get those reports reviewed by an expert in the field so that you know that you have something polished that can really help you stand out. So this vibe coding wave, it's only accelerating. I think that the gap is going to widen before it narrows. Like, this technology is here to stay. It's not going away. And enterprise teams are not built for this volume really of what they're going to have to deal with. Because even like these enterprises are trying to find ways to use these AI tools and stuff like that. And I think a lot of enterprises are going to use it to code up internal tools, because that is a really good use case of AI. It's not good for production level code to vibe code, but it is good for, spinning up rapid prototypes. There's a lot of initiatives in these companies they wanted to kick off, but they didn't have the bandwidth to allocate developers to build certain internal tools in-house. Now they're going to be able to do that at scale with this vibe coding, but that also means assume breach scenario, right? If you're in their environment as an attacker and you're doing a red team engagement or a pen test or whatever, well, now you can go and look for these tools, these in-house built tools, and you can take advantage of the fact that they're like 80 to 90% vulnerable. And you can use that, because if it's an in-house tool, that probably has access. If it's AI based, it probably has access to other stuff. They're doing the agentic stuff. You compromise that, then you can easily pivot into something else. This is how I would be thinking about this technology and what it means for your red team engagements to really excel going forward and deliver value to the client, to the company you're working for. I would say like AI code-based assessments, it's going to be like a new job category that barely existed 18 months ago as well. Really keeping that continuous, as we continuously develop, we have to continuously secure and bake that into the process as well. There's been some tools that have sprung up recently, things like Cubic is one, and there's also one built into Cursor that will automatically scan each commit, and you can add it to your GitHub pipeline to not only identify security issues spit out by the AI, but also to secure it before it pushes it out into production. So that's something that you want to be using in tandem, as well as, the human reviewers to catch anything that those tools might miss. But yeah, founders and CTOs walking up to legal financial exposure with this, definitely. So this is going to be a very interesting development as time goes on this year. And the reality is your competition is still chasing that same cert path from 3 years ago. Like every single day I talk to people that are like, oh yeah, I'm like, what have you done so far to try to learn cybersecurity? Oh yeah, I got my Google cybersecurity cert, Security Plus, and I'm learning networking. And don't get me wrong, like you need the foundations. Absolutely, you need the fundamentals. Don't skip that. But a lot of people, they just stop there. They just go for a bunch of certifications that are very surface level that don't really help them stand out at all whatsoever. So adding in something like this, like if you pay attention to what's happening in cybersecurity, what's happening right now, what's on the cutting edge, and you just make that a little bit of your study time, right? Still learn the fundamentals, absolutely. Learn the web fundamentals. We just talked about that. Things like SQL injection, web authentication, all of that. Learn that stuff, but then also pair that with a little bit of the cutting edge stuff, a little bit of AI technology. Play around with this stuff. Try to break it. Don't get yourself in trouble with the law and stuff, but, try to essentially learn some of the cutting edge stuff, stay up to date with what's going on, and then build portfolio pieces for that. That is going to help you stand out more than anything else. So if you want some help with being able to stand out and really optimize your path into cybersecurity, check that link down in the description below. Let's jump on a call, and I will see you guys in the next one.